So I'm here with Dr. Michelle Friedman, who is the chair of pastoral counseling at Yeshivat Chovevei Torah, the YCT Rabbinical School, where I was privileged to study, and is coming out actually with a book on this topic, which you should keep your eyes open for, The Art of Jewish Pastoral Counseling, and continues to be an associate professor at Mount Sinai in clinical psychology, has her own private pet practice in clinical psychiatry, and is really, so many of us in the field rely upon her for her wisdom in how to build Jewish community and manage difficult situations. So one of those situations which so many rabbis and really every human being is grappling with is around the issue of end of life.
Right.
Is it important that people really think a lot about and prepare a lot for their end of life experiences?
Yes, I think it's really important, and I think that it's a particularly Jewish value. We prepare for everything. We prepare for a baby being born. We have a bris for a new baby boy. We have a shalom bat, a simchat bat for a girl. I just went to a shalom zacher for a baby boy. Bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, weddings. Everything is imbued with so much preparation and so much thoughtfulness. And these are life passages, and so I really feel that it's critical that we prepare for the end of our lives well, that we don't see this as an unnatural, it's sad and it may be tragic, but when we have the opportunity to prepare, I think it integrates this life cycle experience into the Jewish continuous experience in a really profound way. In fact, that's what I'm doing here in Phoenix today is coming for a Judaism and end-of-life conference in which people from all the denominations are speaking about different aspects of this.
What would you say is the most common resistance that you experience in people really taking this on, really grappling with their own mortality, dealing with the legal, social, familial dynamics?
Okay, so let me just back up a little bit and kind of explain that the project that I'm particularly committed to is something that a lot of people have read Atul Gawande's book, Being Mortal, or they've read, the new one now is Paul Kalanithi's book called When Breath Turns to Air. And they talk in these books about, well, let me just back up yet again, what's the difference between an advanced life directive and a healthcare proxy? An advanced life directive is when somebody writes out what they want done or what they don't want done in a situation where he or she could no longer speak for themselves. And that sounds like a good idea, getting it on paper. But situations change, and it's really hard to say, if I made an advanced life directive when I'm 45 and now I'm 65, or I make it when I'm 65 and now I'm 82, how do you interpret that? And so the really much more powerful, important thing to do is to appoint a healthcare proxy, a person who knows you and knows your values and knows who you would want them to turn to. For example, what doctors, what rabbinic counsel, that kind of thing, and knows what you want in terms of your larger values. And so it's critically important to not just appoint that healthcare proxy person, but to have a meaningful conversation about these values, to document who the healthcare proxy is, and this is also, it sounds simple, but it's really important to know where that document is. And a lot of people just say, oh, I did it with my lawyer, but where is it? Who has it? And all these things become vitally important if the time should come. Again, this is important when a person can no longer, for any reason, maybe a sudden devastating injury, maybe the progression of an illness, whatever it is, can no longer speak for him or herself. Because if they can speak for him or themselves, then they make those decisions. But all these things that I just talked about, obviously they raise uncomfortable situations in the imagination. And when I've talked about this, let's say at my own synagogue, at Kiddush, people will giggle nervously and they'll say, I don't want to talk about that, or can't we talk about something more pleasant, or this isn't fun. I don't, everybody knows, we all know that we're mortal, but we're just built with a extraordinarily powerful, I guess it's a dynamic to deny it, and to just want to keep on going in the flow and to push away that really uncomfortable thought that somehow it's going to come to a close.
Yeah. My wife and I just went through a process of signing a number of wills, and we felt in our Jewish bones that sense of ayin hara, are we going to bring about something negative upon us? And we had to psychologically work through that we're not going to bring about our death by talking about this. We have children, and it's a responsibility to our children to think about this. And I wonder, is there in terms of advanced life directives, or really the healthcare proxy, is there a list of conversations to have? I mean, there's probably 50 different issues that a proxy should know about. So how do you kind of begin that process?
Well, I think there's a tremendous amount of literature online. You can look at the healthcare proxy form of your state. You can look at there's the RCA has a form. Rabbi Jason Weiner actually has a very good document online that describes the difference between healthcare proxies and advanced care directives. But something I also want to include, besides the specific health measures, this becomes an opportunity for people to think about what their ethical legacies are. And I would like to see this project grow so that people not only appoint a healthcare proxy, but think about, and this I think tends to come as people get older, maybe writing out, well, what's my ethical will? What do I hope my children, my family, my whoever it is, take away from me? And I think it could become creative in a way that helps people articulate really meaningful values and opens up conversations that help bridge generations. Because of course loss and death is deeply sad, and loss is the biggest word. But I think the more that we know about each other, the more continuous we feel about what we're doing.
Beautiful, yeah. So the health side is so important because there's end-of-life decisions to make in terms of support, life support. I certainly want to encourage organ donation. Then there's the financial issues of inheritance and debts. And then there's this legacy issue. And the rabbis were very clear in the Musar tradition and the Talmud that thinking about death actually can be very productive. Not only think of our legacy, but having the humility to understand that there's an end to this.
And another point I want to bring up, and this happens so often, and I think that the healthcare professionals, the doctors, the nurses, people who work in the system really have seen this, unfortunately, too many times, is that if there aren't clear directives, if there isn't one person who's deputized as the decision maker, there are these terrible fights in the hallways of the ICU. And that one person says, no, I want everything to be done. The other person says, well, mommy or daddy said that they didn't want to live X way or Y way.
You leave the family with a burden.
That's right. It's a tremendous burden. And then the end of a life is fraught with family fighting and conflict.
Yeah, totally.
And now it's important if a parent, an elder, let's say, designates one child or one person in the younger generation, it could be a niece or a nephew, that decision should be known to the rest of the people beforehand. And that's a tough thing, and parents often don't want to say, well, I'm choosing Sally because she's a lawyer, or I'm choosing Bob because he lives closer. And the other ones feel, well, why not me? But it's better to have those conversations than to leave it for the fight in the hall outside the ICU.
So I think my last question for you is, what should the broader Jewish community be doing about this to make these conversations, make this process more possible, more helpful, more productive?
I think a really good place to start is to have a discussion about a book. I think Gawandi's Being Mortal, or the other one I mentioned, When Breath Turns to Air, and there's more and more of these coming out, is a really wonderful way. A book is always like it's somebody else's story, so you can talk about it easier. And we've done this in my synagogue, and we did role plays of having these conversations, and I think it can be a really good way to get people talking about something that everybody thinks about, but nobody knows how to bring it into the conversation.
So we encourage everyone to talk among their family, talk with their rabbi or whoever they look to for spiritual guidance, and to really take this process very seriously. Everyone should live till 120, but in the event that we don't, or whenever we go, we should really...
Or at 120.
Even at 120, be responsibly prepared for the next stages and what we leave in this world for our family and our loved ones. Be sure to check out Dr. Michelle Friedman's book coming out soon. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Friedman.
It was a pleasure.